going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of Horror. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, 31 Days of Horror Volume 9, Day 9 is coming at you live and direct. All right, so for today, we're going to go back to the U.S., into the 1970s, specifically 1974, which was kind of still in the heyday of like blaxploitation films and stuff like that. And yeah, so we've got one called Sugar Hill. Yes, of course, this is a blaxploitation voodoo zombie film. Of course, starring Robert Quarry, who plays like the head of this mob corporation, like the mob or whatever, who's most famous for probably playing Count Yorga. You know, I think he did this film in between those two, or maybe it's around the same time. But that's what I know Robert Quarry for playing Count Yorga from the most, anyways. And then it's starring, what's her name? Marquette Bay as Diane Sugar Hill. And she's just absolutely so beautiful in this film. Like, I thought she was cast absolutely perfect in this. But yeah, so getting into the premise of Sugar Hill, basically it follows our main character, Diana Sugar Hill. She's dating this guy who owns this club, and in the beginning of the film, basically these mobsters, they're trying to strike a deal with him to buy his club off him, and he wants nothing to do with the mob. He just does not want to sell his club whatsoever. One thing leads to another, and then the goons, they go and beat him to death. So of course she's really sad and pissed off and stuff, and wants revenge against the mob. So she goes to this voodoo priestess where they basically conjure up this character called the Lord of the Dead. He has a name, I can't remember what it is, but the Lord of the Dead, and he can basically kind of resurrect these zombies from the dead to exact her revenge, and that's what he does. So in exchange for her soul. So he basically, you know, conjures up these zombies, which are actually kind of cool because it plays into the whole kind of slave thing too. They were slaves from like the 1840s, and they rise from the ground and stuff like that to go do her bidding for her. And then, of course, carnage ensues. So that's the premise of the film. Now, my thoughts on Sugar Hill. I absolutely love this movie. Right from the opening credits, it's got that really cool kind of 70s blaxploitation, kind of funk R&B soundtrack score kind of going for it. It plays like voodoo. The score itself is mostly, you know, kind of like bass, like what you would expect from like voodoo type sounds and music and stuff like that, which is really cool. Love the setting in this film. It takes place down in the South. I'm not sure if they specifically say where, but I'm going to assume it's Louisiana. It feels like that. Of course, they're famous for their voodoo and, you know, the swamp areas and stuff like that. And it showcases that quite well in the film and stuff like that. So once it gets going, you know, our lead character, Sugar Hill, she's such a cool and calm character in this film. Like, even though she's been did so wrong, her boyfriend was murdered and stuff like that. Like, the other cool thing about, you know, her character is that she was actually given the power to do a little bit of voodoo herself. It wasn't just the Lord of the Dead who rises up these zombies who exact most of the revenge within the film, but she actually has the ability to do a little bit of voodoo herself, and of course, in exchange for her soul. So I like that idea too. It wasn't just the zombies doing the killing. She actually had the power to do a little bit herself. I thought that was kind of a different angle. Yeah, the voodoo priestess in this film, she looks pretty awesome, man. Like, that's a really cool character. The look of the Lord of the Dead guy, awesome. He reminds me of Eugene Clark. He looks identical to Eugene Clark. You know, the dude that was in Land of the Dead, the guy that had the gun, who got really smart, the smart zombie. He looks just like him. I know when I first watched this film back in the day, well, when I got this Blu-ray about 10 years ago, this is the original Scorpion Blu-ray that came out about 10 years ago, that was distributed through Kino. So Kino actually re-put this out on their Kino Cult line. So if you're looking to get this one, is readily available again. But yeah, so I remember watching this one about 10 years ago when the Blu-ray came out, and I was like, man, is that Eugene Clark or whatever his name? I think it's Eugene Clark, the guy from Land of the Dead. But he looks just like him, and I checked out the credits. I'm like, no, it's not him. It's a totally different guy, but looks identical to him. So that's kind of what the dude looks like, the Lord of the Dead guy. But anyways, so once the revenge starts being exacted, the kills aren't overly the greatest in the film. Like, I mean, you see more of the aftermath of things. You don't really get to see a whole lot of blood and gore and stuff. Like, a little bit of blood, but it's more of the aftermath. They do kill in various ways and stuff like that, but they're not like top shelf kills and stuff like that, which is kind of a little bit disappointing. The coolest thing about the zombies, which it's kind of like a combination of like the old school voodoo films where, you know, you like the actual voodoo zombies, which was like hypnotizing and stuff like that, and like new age, like George Romero zombies, because these are risen from the grave through voodoo, but they're actually dead corpses. So it's like a combination of the both, which is really cool. Now, the coolest thing about the zombies is that the look of them. They look awesome, man. They come out and they just look so dirty and they got cobwebs all over them. But their eyes are so unique, man. They have like these silver balls that bulge out of their head and they kind of look like, yeah, like where their eyes would be. And they just kind of look like big silver kind of golf balls kind of thing. But the look of the zombies in the film is actually really cool. One of my favorite things about the movie and stuff like that. So and of course, meanwhile, while all this revenge is happening, you have, the subplot with the cop. He's investigating all these murders, and he doesn't believe in voodoo, of course. There is a connection between our lead character, Sugar Hill, and the cop. They were once a couple, but it doesn't really go any further than that. They just kind of mention it in passing and stuff like that while he investigates these murders. And he figures that eventually, like, something has to do with, like, the voodoo, and, like, she might have something to do with it and things like that. And, of course, which I feel like the cop portions of the film kind of bring it down a tiny bit. It gets a little bit slow in parts. Even though the kills are spaced out well enough in the film that I feel like you get one every, so often in the film. You're not just like, you get a kill in the beginning of the film. You ever get those slasher films where there's a kill in the beginning of the film and then 55 minutes later there's another kill? It's not like that. They're quite spread out, but they're just not overly that memorable. And some of the cop stuff is a little bit blah. But I like this. I like where the film goes and the actual, when she completes her revenge and what happens and stuff like that. It doesn't probably go exactly the way you think it does, considering she was, going to be soulless. So, but yeah, Sugar Hill, it's good. It runs, your normal 90 minutes kind of thing. Doesn't overstay its welcome. Great soundtrack. It's shot really well. The interesting thing about this movie, it's directed by Paul Maslensky, who was mostly known as a producer. Very interesting. This is the only film that he ever directed, but he produced a ton of films. Like, he produced Castle of the Living Dead back in like the late 60s. He also did he do Raw Meat? Yeah, he did Raw Meat, I think, too. Or Deathline Raw Meat, whatever you want to call it. He also did Race with the Devil. He produced that movie. I think he did Sudden Terror. I think he did Sudden Terror also. So, like late 60s, early 70s. He kind of got into the horror genre. He was doing horror films, did this one. And then by the 80s, he ended up producing all the Police Academy films. And that's where I knew his name from. I'm like, what? Where do I know that name from? So he did all the Police Academy films, the Police Academy TV series and stuff like that. I think he produced Ski School. So he went from like the horror and exploitation genre into like comedies and shit like that. So, but yeah, so oddly enough, the only film that he ever directed, which was like right in the middle of him producing, it's just don't know why he did this. He wrote a few films also. He did not write this one. But again, Sugar Hill is one of those films that is a product of its time. It's the early 70s, so you expect, the jive talk and, saying dynamite and things like that. And you also expect white folks dropping N-bombs. It's just filthy like that. Like in a lot of old school blaxploitation films, white characters or white people are dirtbags. They say a lot of N-bombs in these films. Like there's this one scene where this chick just drops she's like, "You dirty," and slaps her, and they get in a really good fight with Sugar Hill. It's pretty cool, man. I actually really like that scene. That character is such a bitch in this film too. But yeah, so it's a product of its time. So just, if you're sensitive to things like that, you're going to see a little bit. It's not over the top like a lot of blaxploitation films with the language and stuff like that. But it's definitely a product of its time, which I would assume you'd probably assume that it would be. So, but all in all, it's really good. It's a very, very well-made blaxploitation film. The acting is really solid. I think that Marquis Bay, I always forget her name. She does a really good job as Sugar Hill, man. In fact, everyone's really good. Robert Corey's really good as the mob boss in this. He holds it down. All the little goons and stuff like that are good. Like, the acting's solid all the way around. The guy that plays the Lord of the Dead, man, his laugh in this film is timeless. It's so funny. Every time he starts breaking out in this, like, laugh and shit, like, it's pretty cool. And there is some really good atmosphere. There's scenes where they're going through, like, the kind of like the swamplands and stuff like that, and there's smoke, and the scene leading up to where they resurrect, where they summon the Lord of the Dead is really awesome. Really, really, really well done. So, but all in all, great film. I'm going to give this one about a 7.5 out of 10. It's way above average. It's solid. I think my biggest problem with the film is I just wish the kills were a little bit more gory. A little bit more blood and guts, because there is a lot of deaths. They kill quite a few of the mob bosses or mob people in this film. So, but just minor nitpicks. All in all, it's still really good. So, yeah, Nothing more to say about Sugar Hill from 1974. Absolutely love it. I wish they had done more blaxploitation films in that era. Like, there's some really good ones like Blackula and Scream, Blackula, Scream. Like, those are legit, actual. A lot of people think those are going to be comedies, but they're actually not comedies. And this one isn't a comedy either. JD's Revenge is another really good one. There's Abby, which is an Exorcist ripoff. There's actually quite a few from that time period. They still kind of make them, if you, a lot of people consider the Killjoy movies to be blaxploitation films. But that era was really good. I wish they had made a little bit more, but there is still some to choose from. So, but anyways, that is going to do it for day 9 here on the 31 Days of Horror, Volume 9. I'll be back tomorrow, day 10, and I think we're going to France, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we are. I'm pretty sure we're going to France tomorrow, so stay tuned. And that's going to be another rewatch for me. It's a film I've just been wanting to rewatch for a long time. Like this one, I hadn't seen this movie since I bought this in 15, so it's been about 10 years since I watched Sugar Hill. Didn't regret it at all. Really good fun. So anyways, guys, check you tomorrow on day 10, and as usual,